So here we are with My Little Pony Season 6, Episode 20, Viva Los Pegasus. Hard not to sing that title. And we start things off very quickly with the map telling Fluttershy and Applejack to a city in the clouds with a huge amusement park type atmosphere. Just as I suspected in my predictions video, it was highly likely that Los Pegasus would not be allowed to feature gambling in a kids' TV show. So we have the amusement park / Chuck E. Cheese atmosphere with all of the arcade games and carnival style stuff, because even though they're still games of chance, parents consider carnival games to not be gambling on the same premise as casino games are gambling. Even though they both have almost the same concept, if you're winning teddy bears and not cash money, it's okay for kids to blow their money on games of chance. Just about everything that I wanted in my Los Pegasus predictions either came true, or if they didn't come true, it was no big loss to the episode. I got plenty of celebrity cameos like Siegfried and Roy using pink prairie dogs instead of white Bengal tigers, Fluttershy interacting with said animal act in an adorable way. We got Cirque du Soleil, we got an Elvis / Liberace pony as the main antagonist. We got the Flim Flam brothers acting as servants to a boss who's taking advantage of them, who need the friendship problem to get them out of the situation that they're in, and not being the heads of the hotel / casino thing. We got all of those fancy Vegas landmarks. We got Applejack being challenged to put aside her feelings for our enemy to have honesty prevail in a friendship problem type situation. The fact that we didn't get anything related to Penn and Teller or the mafia tying ponies up and putting them in trunks and driving in and out into the desert to dump their bodies where no pony would ever find them, and we didn't see any burlesque shows and there was no Trixie in this episode, are all things that I can overlook for being left off my checklist, because those things would not have added to the episode. It had just the right amount of background stuff, and there's already tons of things happening in the background to pay attention to, like Parasprite stuffed animals and stuffed jackalopes being handed out as prizes at various carnival games, DDR video games being played, skee-ball, roller coasters, Ferris wheels, all sorts of new background ponies, and a few familiar faces who for some reason or another have shown up in previous map episodes, almost as if they're stalking the map from location to location, but probably more or less coincidence. There was a lot of neat stuff going on in this particular episode. After Fluttershy and Applejack show up at Los Pegasus, we get that overview of the whole place, which canonizes ideas like the Eiffel Tower and the Sphinx, or at least Los Pegasus' version of those things. We even see a mini Manhattan in one of the corners of Los Pegasus, and another thing that looks to be sort of like an Oriental style building as well. So it's nice to get some of Equestria's culture in that brief little glimpse of the exterior. Just the overall look of the place looks really cool. Then Applejack and Fluttershy meet one of the few ponies who recognizes them and knows their name and reputation ahead of time and greets them as if they were mild celebrities. Gladmane, our new character who's way too friendly to be an actual good guy and is in fact actually evil, shows the ponies around. We get an early appearance of a pony that resembles Flim and Flam, just to trigger in our minds the thought process of recalling Flim and Flam's existence, to say, hey, that pony looks like Flim and Flam, now they're on my brain. So when they're reintroduced into the episode, you're surprised to see them, but your brain is already thinking about them, so they end up being less of a surprise. We introduce Applejack and Fluttershy after this to the acrobatic act, who also does magic on the side, sort of blending two things that Vegas is known for into one act, and the Siegfried and Roy with, instead of white Bengal tigers, pink-striped prairie dogs, which is a nice little twist. You still get that typical Las Vegas show pony without having to exactly replicate Siegfried and Roy, Penn and Teller, Willie Nelson, etc., etc., etc. Even the pony who was reminiscent of Elvis had slight hints of the Liberace or some other pony in his personality, so there were definitely multiple Vegas celebrities worked into these performer ponies. As the plot goes on, we're introduced to Flim and Flam, and the brothers are arguing and have broken up their team, spending too much time arguing with themselves to be the normal con men that we've come to know them as, and they're unable to pull any scams because all their attention is focused on fighting. The objective in this episode is to get Applejack to put aside her rivalry and hatred for the Flim Flam brothers and want to help reform them so that the Flim Flam brothers can help Fluttershy and Applejack con a con man, which is an interesting idea, and it helps Applejack's character grow, and it's exactly what I expected. But Applejack, being too stubborn, goes looking for friendship problems and finds 2 more friendship problems. A total of 3 pairs of ponies who have had their lives ruined by Gladmane manipulating them into thinking that he was their only friend and that they had no place else to go, so that they would stay at the hotel and continue performing. We also see one of the Earth ponies putting on makeup with a bit of lipstick that's strapped onto her hoof, letting us get a slight idea of how hooves work if you're the kind of pony who doesn't have wings or magic to manipulate objects with. Definitely an interesting little subtle background piece. There's a lot of fun background stuff happening whenever you walk through the game rows as well, and I'm just waiting for some of these background ponies to get named and receive fan art and fan favoritism. Gladmane, calling himself a pony of kindness and friendship and so forth, definitely sounds like he's directly challenging Fluttershy, the element of kindness, to prove what kindness truly is, which is exactly what she does with help from talking to her animal friends, just like how she helped solve the Hooffields and Matolts issue by talking to the animals. She's once again talking to the animals to get information. When the Flim Flam brothers finally realize that Applejack is being honest about Gladmane scamming them, and they decide to scam Gladmane in return, they have Fluttershy dress up as impossibly rich, a member of the rich family here to build her own resort and buy up the competition and bring some of Gladmane's employees over to her hotel to work for her. something that he doesn't want to have happen. The Flim Flam brothers are trying to get Gladman to reveal his secret over a public recording, using the same method that was used by Twilight to capture Swen Gallop and reveal his dirty dealings to Rara in a previous Applejack episode. Only the brothers don't have Twilight's recording skills and have to use an actual microphone instead of a microphone spell. Whether this recording session happened because Applejack remembered Twilight pulling something similar on Swen Gallop, or whether the Flim Flam brothers had this entire thing planned out, is something we'll never know. But it does make me wonder as to whether or not Impossibly Rich is an actual member of the Rich family, or just a name that the Flim Flam brothers made up, hoping that no pony would recognize that Fluttershy was faking. It's also interesting to see as Fluttershy encourages Applejack to befriend the Flim Flam brothers and goes along with this whole ruse of being impossibly rich and having the whole crowd gather around her, that her personality has evolved to the point where she's nowhere near as shy as she was in the first season. These are all things that she would have never done a few years ago, and it's definitely clear that she's grown a lot since then. That's Fluttershy more recently than ever has come off as being nice but a little sassy, which is an interesting change for her character. Whether people like it or not is up to further debate. It seems at first in this episode that the Flim Flam brothers' con fails when Gladman reveals that he knew it was Fluttershy the whole time. But then it turns out that the con was to get Gladman to think he had won so he would gloat about it. So in fact, what we think is the con failing is actually the con going exactly according to plan. It's a very interesting twist. And then at the end of the episode, the Flim Flam brothers are actually not reformed, and in fact try to run the hotel, if only temporary, as they slash the admission price to the now empty theater and encourage ponies to pay that price so they can sit in an empty theater and use their imaginations to pretend they're watching a show, actually succeeding in getting ponies to give up their hard-earned bits to do something that they could have done for free. But because it sounded like such a fabulous deal, many ponies couldn't resist. So yeah, the Flim Flam brothers remain unreformed at the end of the story, and they're still their good old-fashioned ton pony selves. Now, one may argue that the Flim Flam brothers were not originally ton ponies and actually had a successful business deal during the Super Cider episode. But I argue that the Flim Flam brothers were always intended to be ton ponies, and that episode was just poorly written when it came to conveying the image of them as being ton ponies. Also, this is the first time the Flim Flam brothers have appeared with full episode screen time and speaking roles and not had one of their classic Flim Flam sales pony songs. This is probably due to the fact that they were arguing and not pulling a con job, and since they were arguing, they didn't have time to sell a product of some kind through the miracle of song. So basically, to sum things up, the moral of the story is to remain paranoid of your enemies and suspect they're up to no good, then show kindness to your enemy to have them ultimately remain evil. Anyhow, that's all I have to say about this episode for now. Thank you for watching, and good night.